You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 103. Self-care is talked about a lot on social media, and it can sometimes be overlooked or taken lightly. It is absolutely critical to our well-being. So today we are learning how we can be more intentional with our self-care practice and include practices that incorporate the inner, outer, and higher self in our healing journey. So without further ado, let's jump to it. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fragon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the beautiful Melissa Nkomo, founder of Kunye, which is a slow wellness and mindful movement community with the intention of supporting your self-exploration and care as you move through your own journey. And I think that this is so important because we don't focus enough on self-care and taking care of ourselves on all levels, especially right now with what's going on in the world. There's a lot more stress and anxiety and fears and emotions. So I think it's super important to put more focus on that. And I cannot wait to dive into this subject with you. So welcome, Melissa. I'm just so honored to have you as my guest. And I'm so excited to learn more about your story and any advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Well, thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. As you mentioned, my name's Melissa. I am the founder of a company called Kunye, which is really a mindful movement and well-being company that started out of my own self-exploration and my own desire to really be well and to feel well, not only in my body, but in my life. And so for me, that journey really was three-dimensional, and that's where the concept of the inner, the outer, and the higher self came to life. And it really started from me exploring those aspects for myself and finding how they were all woven and linked together, and how caring for these various aspects really did have a powerful impact on my life overall, and really did help me achieve mental health and well-being through that practice and exploration. So Kunye sort of stems from my own journey, and as a result has become this incredible community of like-minded self-seekers who are all on their own journey looking for ways to just care for their inner, outer, and higher self on a deeper and more transformative level.
I love that. And I love that it started out of like a personal need, something that you needed to do for yourself, and it expanded into something beautiful that others can benefit from as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to talk about your self-exploration journey and what that was like. You know, did you struggle with anything that you needed to overcome or to heal? And that's what led you on this journey.
I think we're all struggling with something.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, that was a part of my journey. But I think more than the struggle, it's been about evolution. I think as I've encountered challenges in my life, rather than retreating, I've always had this like curiosity and desire to understand it and to integrate it, and to sort of carry it with me and inform future moments in my life. So my self-care and healing journey is less about fixing or, dealing with one problem and then sort of packing it away in the background and never thinking about it again. I realize it's really this practice of embodiment, of encountering these challenges, taking the lessons from them, growing from them, but also recognizing that those challenges and those lessons become a part of you as you move forward. They're never forgotten or lost. So for me, self-care and healing is always an ongoing thing. I used to refer to like the old me versus the new me, but it's now all of me. And I'm just continuously learning to explore myself as I encounter challenges in different relationships and the challenge of being an entrepreneur, which is in and of itself a whole evolution. Yeah, so I think healing for me or self care for me is really an ongoing journey. It's not this destination or point of arrival. I think it always evolves as my life evolves.
I couldn't agree more, and I love that you mentioned that because a lot of people think that they just arrive at this place where they're just good to go, like set
Mhm.
it and forget it type thing. But really, it's like self-love, self-care. It's something that you have to practice daily, and it changes as seasons change, as you have different experiences. Your needs change and evolve as you grow. So it's definitely something that you need to stick with, and you need to be open to the changes that will come as life goes on.
Absolutely. And I think so often we think we need to fix something and move on from it in order to be healed. But I think
Mhm.
part of the healing is actually recognizing that that thing becomes a part of us. So it's like you can heal, I don't know, heartbreak. The lessons you take from that relationship become a part of you so that you carry those lessons into the next relationship. How, harmful would it be for us to like enter a relationship, it not go well, and we just say, oh, well, I'm just going to forget about that and move on to the next relationship, only to make the exact same mistakes, find ourselves in the exact same position. And it's because we didn't actually integrate what we learned from that previous relationship. We just decided to fix ourselves and move on. And so I think there's this idea in self care and wellness and health, even that once you fix a problem, you forget it. Whereas my approach is that problem will always be recurring in your life. And it's an opportunity to just continuously develop and evolve your skills around how you deal with that problem, how you relate to that problem. Yeah, I think, like I said, it's just a constant evolution and they never really go anywhere. They just shift and change and teach us more as we grow and become better and more wiser people.
That's so beautifully said, and I can't agree more. I love your approach to this. It's just such a better way of looking at it and dealing with things in life. And I love that you mentioned, the old you versus the new you and how that's just you,
Hmm.
right? Like you're just evolving as a human being and it's not two completely separate things. You're still that same person, but you've grown.
Absolutely. And even in this new person, in this new growth, I still have the potential to make the same mistakes or to desire the same things I wanted back then. But I can then recognize that and say, maybe this isn't the best place for me to be, or maybe this isn't the best desire to hold on to. Because
Hmm.
I've done that once before and it didn't work out great,
Yeah.
but if I had sort of packed it away and tried to forget about it, when that problem comes up again, I'd probably make the same decision again because I didn't allow myself to really integrate it. I just said, no, I'm going to forget about that and move on. Well, it never really goes anywhere. We just are really good at ignoring it. Um, and I think that's common for big things and little things. We have a nagging pain in our back. We just kind of ignore it until finally you can't ignore it because you can't get out of bed. Your back is screaming in pain, right? And it's like, well, we just tried to push past it. We just tried to ignore it, tried to pack it away, and then it kept coming back, kept coming back. It's almost like we didn't learn from that pain when it was a little twinge, and now it's this screaming pain that, is preventing us from going about our day. I feel the same about healing and life and learning when it comes to like your self-care and your growth and evolution.
Hmm. Completely. Now, when it comes to practicing Pilates, yoga, and meditation, we hear about this a lot. There are a lot of physical benefits and whatnot to these practices. But how did it help you personally on your own journey in all those areas that you mentioned? The three, the inner, the outer, and the higher self, I believe it was.
Hmm. Yeah. So I had always explored self care and wellness, and movement had been a really big part of my life. I grew up as an athlete and had always just turned to movement as sort of my therapeutic release. But what I really sort of came to discover about myself through mindful movement, and mindful meaning more intentional, oftentimes slower, more methodical movement like yoga and Pilates, is a greater sense of self awareness and the connection between how I moved my body and how I moved through my life. So oftentimes early on in my movement journey, I was really disconnected from what my body was doing. I was so focused on the outcome. I was there because I had to be there. You have to be dedicated and you have to work hard, and it was a good workout as long as I sweat, but I didn't really have a sense of where my body was in space. And at that time, I think my life paralleled in the same way. I was just kind of moving through life without a sense of self awareness, who I am, what I really wanted. And when I found more mindful forms of movement like yoga and Pilates, it invited me to connect with myself on a deeper level, especially in moving slowly and having to focus and concentrate on my breath rather than the burn or the sensation that I was feeling. And it helped cultivate a lot of body awareness. And I slowly started to notice as I would move through my life, I was also more aware of how I was feeling in my body. When I was aware of how I was feeling in my body, I was also more connected to my sense of inner knowing or intuition because my receptors were turned on. I was so open to feeling and being connected to my body. And I think that wholeheartedly came from adopting a really mindful form of exercise and movement.
I want to touch on that because I can kind of relate to that because it's probably been since July, mid July, that I started this, where I was practicing Pilates and yoga. And prior to that, I was always on the search for different kinds of exercise, but just focused on the result and just powering through and not being present in the moment and just kind of going through the motions, which now that you've said that you kind of relate it to your life, I can see how that also aligned with how I was living my life. But now I see this value in Pilates and yoga and this meditation and just slowing down and, being really aware of how my body is moving and taking the time to really sit in those positions and focusing on breathing. And it was such a struggle at first because I was just so used to this different type of movement and not being really present in that moment. And now having to be still and just kind of focus was so hard at first, but now it's something that I actually crave.
Mm,
Like it's the most enjoyable experience when you can just stop, be present, focus on your breathing. Everything just kind of disappears and you're just so self-aware of your body, how you're feeling. Like it's just such a different experience.
100%. I think if you can focus on your breath, you can focus on anything.
Mm-hmm. And it takes practice. It doesn't come overnight.
Absolutely. And that's why you sit in meditation. That's why you come to the mat and practice. That's why you move slowly and challenge yourself in Pilates to really make the connections in your body. It's all a practice of the same skills that you need to utilize in your life: focus, awareness, connection, presence, patience, so much patience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there are moments where, especially in being an entrepreneur, where you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And those are the moments where I actually just sit in meditation. Sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's an hour, but literally sitting so that I don't just distract myself and keep myself busy, which to me is the equivalent of sort of doing mindless movement, mindless tasks, and instead sit, get intentional, sit with what I'm feeling, focus on my breath so that when I come out of that moment of stillness, I can take that same focus and same awareness to the problem I'm trying to solve or the thing that I'm trying to create. I can I can feel that transfer of the meditative qualities and properties from the mat into my life. And again, it didn't happen overnight. It's not perfect. There are
Mm-hmm.
some days where I'm like really struggling to sit in meditation, and there are other days where I feel like I could sit in meditation for hours. But it's a practice, and you just continuously show up for yourself and pay attention to your breath and integrate it into the rest of your life as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Now, when did you realize that you could turn this purpose, this passion that you've developed through your own journey into a business?
I think I'm still realizing that to COVID and 2020 in general. I think for the first time as an entrepreneur and in my life, I think I would say I feel limitless and I feel like consumers and just people in general have really shifted what we value and how we purchase and what we want to incorporate in our lives and in our daily practices. And so when I recognized that in my own life, I was really utilizing not only movement, but mindful self care as ritual and as opportunities to connect and to soothe and regulate my nervous system. I just had this sense that maybe other people could benefit from that too.
Mhm.
And I call it bringing like a little bit of magic to the mundane. There are things that we have to do all the time: wash our face, shower, practice hygiene, all of these things. But what if in those moments we got a chance to really savor them and take care of ourselves and use beautiful products and turn it into a ceremony and a ritual that's really all our own? That to me is still a really potent and powerful form of self care. So I think just recognizing that what I was doing to take care of myself, that there was potential for other people to find value in that, is when it started to become a quote unquote business. But even then it's a passion project for me. I don't I try to separate myself from the business a little bit and let it be its own thing and grow and develop kind of like a child.
Mhm.
It just has to go through its own growth and experience. And it's really community based and based off the feedback of everyone in the community. And we're sort of co creating this thing together, which is really special.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Now, your name is very unique. I would love to hear how you came up with it. What is the meaning behind it? And how does it align with your community, the brand that you've created?
So it stemmed from two things. The first was, well, in no particular order, I shouldn't say the first, but one of the things was that my lucky number has always just been 1 or 11. As an athlete growing up, I always wanted like the number one jersey or the number 11. And then as I got older and started to get a spiritual practice, understanding the like spiritual significance of seeing 1111, which is a number I see often, had a lot of meaning. And then I also knew that I wanted to pay tribute to my mother, who I call my first self care guru. She really instilled in me the importance of taking care of yourself, particularly through movement and personal care. And so, in my desire to want to combine these two ideas, I asked her what the word one was translated into Zulu, which is my mom's native language. My family's from Zimbabwe. And one in Zulu is Kunye. And I thought that was such a beautiful word. And so that became the name of the company. And then as the community grew and the idea and the concept behind Kunye grew, of this inner, outer, higher, and bringing everything into alignment, it really became about oneness, not just oneness within yourself and these inner, outer, and higher aspects of yourself, but oneness with all of us as a community. So it just seemed really fitting. And now it has a lot of really beautiful, deep meaning. But it all stemmed from a desire, or rather my love of the number one, and a desire to want to just honor and pay tribute to my mom, who is an amazing, incredible woman. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's such a great story behind the name.
Yeah, it all just kind of worked out, I guess. It was meant to be an integrative healing brand. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, we all know entrepreneurship is it's hard. It's not the easiest journey to take. It brings up a lot of things that you may not have known were even beneath the surface because it pushes you outside your comfort zone. It's the unknown. It's just so much all in one. So I would love to hear what your experience was like starting this business. So did you struggle with anything like fears or limiting beliefs or your confidence in showing up in your community?
Oh, this is a big question. I mean, of course, I literally am in the grips of imposter syndrome as we speak, as the community continues to grow and new exciting things are happening for the business. I definitely get caught in my own head, in my own limiting beliefs. I think there's an additional challenge, particularly in 2020, because we're all now more so much aware of the racial divide within the wellness industry. I'm a Black woman running a wellness based business in a very white centered space. And so with that comes a bit of insecurity, like, do I belong here? Will people want to follow me or trust what I have to say because I don't look like, um, I don't know, the typical wellness guide and guru, right? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of stories that come up from my own personal identity and also from working in a space where I'm oftentimes the only Black person in the space, let alone the quote unquote expert who is there to talk and tell you about health and wellness. That's been a really uncomfortable experience for me at times. And when you're an entrepreneur, and I work mainly with myself and some contractors, but when you are the person behind the show, a lot of your own personal insecurities or doubts and fears creep into the business. So, again, it's been this delicate dance of having to continuously explore and evolve and face my own stuff, limiting beliefs
Mhm.
and challenges, while simultaneously growing a business that I can really separate myself from and raise like literally like a child. It's like I
Mhm.
project onto this business, it has to have its own opportunity to grow and flourish and develop into whatever it's going to become. So, yeah, I mean, it is super challenging. I think being an entrepreneur is a constant roller coaster ride, but there are so many joys that come along with it. And I think I've evolved and grown to become the person that I am in part because I chose to become an entrepreneur. And there are some things, some lessons that I don't think I would have learned without that experience. So
Mhm.
for that, I'm truly grateful. But yes, it's absolutely challenging, and some days are easier than others. Um, yeah.
I just I'm blown away, like, when the Black Lives Movement was happening, and I was spending so much time reading all these experiences and things like that because, I mean, I realized how ignorant I was because I was completely unaware of what Black entrepreneurs are faced with, the things that they struggle with and whatnot. And I had read this one experience that said that they struggled being the face of their business. They hid behind the brand because of the feedback, the things that they would get criticized for, or
Mhm.
the lashings, or anything like that that would come from the community or the audience or the public because they were Black. And I was just completely blindsided. Like, I can't believe that that would happen. Like, that to me is just unbelievable. And for someone who is experiencing it herself, who's running a business, who's a strong, beautiful Black woman, would you have any advice for anybody else that is going through that so that they can show up confidently in their community and try not to be taken back by any of that type of stuff that is happening to them?
Mm. I I don't think that I'm in a position to advise because the experience is so deeply ingrained and rooted in not only our own identities but in our culture in North
Mhm.
America. And I would say that it's not the responsibility of the Black entrepreneur to do the work to be comfortable and to stand tall and proud. It's the work of the community at large to create an equitable playing field so that we don't have to feel that way. We don't have to hesitate entering the space. We don't have to hesitate showing our face because it's a non factor.
Yeah.
So I don't think the onus rests on the Black entrepreneur to buck up or toughen up or show up or, stand proud. I think we as a community need to create more equity, particularly in the wellness industry, and make way for people who don't look the part or fit the part or who identify as BIPOC. And not only just BIPOC, even LGBTQ and marginalized folks. Like, this space should be for all because we all deserve to be well. And so, yeah, it's really difficult for me to say. I mean, it's something I'm still challenged and grappling with. I don't think there's an answer and a solution because I don't think the solution really comes from us. Uh,
100%.
so yeah, that's a really tough question. But I will say there are opportunities for all of us collectively to make Black entrepreneurs, BIPOC entrepreneurs, marginalized entrepreneurs feel welcome at the table and feel supported by doing things like engaging with them on Instagram or social media, supporting their brands, purchasing from Black owned businesses, donating your money directly to Black owned businesses, bypass the large organizations and movement, and reach out to a company and say, hey, like, how can I help you grow your business? For some, it's like I could use $100 to buy a microphone to start my own podcast.
Mhm.
Like maybe you could make an impact for a small business or a Black owned business in that way, or go to a coffee shop owned by a Black family or a Black entrepreneur instead of, going to Starbucks. There's little things that we can all do to make this space, especially as being entrepreneurs and running a business, more equitable for the people who have the courage enough to even start a business, because it's not easy and it's a big decision. And doing that as a BIPOC or marginalized person puts you even more in the seat of vulnerability. And risk. And so, yeah, we should be able to lean on our community to help support us in that. And I think that's where the healing really needs to come from. It doesn't come from us, it comes from all of us together.
100%. I can't agree with that more. And I really hope that things change for the better. I know that there was a lot more awareness put on it, but I think that there's just so much work to be done. And I think that we have so much more to do to step up to show that it's an equal playing field for everybody.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think the momentum has certainly died down. And I think people think the conversation is over, and it's not over. It's not going to be over. And there are, like I said, little things we could all do in our daily life consciously, conscious choices that we can make to make people feel more included and to create more equity within the wellness space in particular, but really everywhere, every
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, um, in our communities. So yeah,
Yeah. I, it saddens me a little bit to hear that it's died down a little bit, because this is something that should be like full throttle for the rest of our existence, really. It
absolutely.
should be like a continuous day-to-day thing. And it doesn't have to be, I love that you said that it's all about the little daily actions. It doesn't have to be this huge gesture that you're making. It could be super small by just reaching out and asking whoever you're following, what can I do to support you right now? Maybe it's featuring you, or, doing some kind of collaboration, or, you know, anything like that. It could be small, but still it's something.
It's something, and it makes all the difference. And I was just recently on a call, and we were talking about how, everyone's so focused on these big conversations, trying to make big changes, but really the most impactful changes we can all make, and this isn't just about social justice, this is about our health, our self-care, our wellness. It all starts with one small action.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave the example of, buying a coffee from, a Black owned coffee shop. Well, you don't know if that cup of coffee is the difference between them making their bills or not that month. You could buy your personal care products from a Black owned business instead of going to Sephora or wherever you purchase and buying from a big, Procter and Gamble or whatever. It makes an impact for that business. It makes an impact for that entrepreneur. So it really comes down to choice, honestly. And we all have the opportunity to make better choices and more conscious choices that welcome more people to the table, and give them the opportunity to just share their gifts and their talents, with the world, which is what we're all here to do. So we should support each
I love that. I definitely agree. And I hope that it continues. And I hope to see more of it throughout social media, throughout online, in person, just everywhere. It's just something that we need to focus on every single day.
other.
When you talk about self-care, I want to dive into the different levels of self-care that we need to focus on, and what you think is truly important. Do you just focus on the physical, or, should we be creating a practice that focuses on all levels?
I think you can't do one without the other. I think rarely have I met someone who really cares for, putting healthy food in their body, but doesn't really like to exercise or work out or doesn't have some type of spiritual practice. I think once you start to curate and be really conscious in one area of your life, it ripples and trickles into the other areas. And I think the people who experience a, a lack of results or a disconnect in those results are really trying to just do it in one corner of their life instead of every corner. Um, so I don't think it's possible to just focus on one over the other. I think you really do have to take an integrative approach. And I mean, for me, I even notice things that you wouldn't normally attribute to your health and well-being have a really big impact in my life. So, for example, if my home is really messy, I feel like I can't get settled and I just feel a little bit uneasy. But if I like take an afternoon and just clean my house and organize or even like redecorate or do something just to make myself feel good in my space, it clears up a lot of mental fog. And so making that connection of like, oh, okay, I started to notice again because of my embodied movement practices, how do I feel in my body and my home when my home is a little bit disorganized or chaotic versus how do I feel in my body and in my home when my home is clean and organized and I light candles or I'm sitting on my couch under a blanket reading a book. All of these things have an impact on our neurological system, have an impact on our mental health. And so I truly believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you're going to take care and concern in one aspect of your life, you're most likely going to take that same care and concern into other corners of your life as well.
I totally agree. Now, for those that are struggling with understanding the importance of self care, how can neglecting self care impact our lives?
Yeah, we are sensorial, energetic beings. And I think what we often forget is that we are responsible for the energy we put out into the world, but we're also responsible for managing the energy that we receive. And so a lack of self care can often be dysregulation of that energetic exchange between us and the world. And so if you don't have a practice that sort of grounds you or bring you back into yourself, it's really easy to get caught up or pulled into whatever energy you're surrounding yourself with. Hopefully it's good energy, but if it's chaotic energy, you too might find yourself feeling really chaotic. If you're in a space that is toxic or harmful, you might be adopting some of these toxic and harmful energies. So I think self care is super important in our own safety and health and wellness as a form of just regulating, checking in with ourselves, making sure we're not susceptible to things that are not ours, to energies that are not ours, if that makes sense.
Totally. Now, for those that aren't fully aware of what energy is and whatnot, and I saw that you talked about it on your website, your energetic field that is around you. Would you be able to give a little bit more information on what that is and, how it can impact us?
Yeah, I mean, the word energy is sort of tossed around, or it sometimes can sound like a bit woo woo, but energy is everything, right? Like we are all energy. It's the same way where one day you might feel really um, excited and full of life and ready to do anything, and another day you might be a little bit lower energy and just need to rest. That cycle um, of vibration, I guess you could say, that cycle of energy is within all of us. And so I think the best way to describe energy is just our exchanges with the world. So if you show up a little more low energy, maybe you're resting. If you show up a little more high energy, maybe you're engaging and interacting with the world in a different way. But so are the things that you're interacting with. They're the same. They're just made of energy as well. Energy can also just be described as a feeling. Our thoughts have different energies attached to them. Our bodies, like I just described, have different energies. So, really, everything is energy. And it's a really great way to sort of ground yourself because at times when we apply a label to that energy, with that label comes a story. So, relationships are a really great example of energetic exchange.
Mhm.
Relationships that really fill your cup, right? It's like a good conversation or a great interaction. And then there are relationships that really drain you. They're tired or they demand a lot of you. And that's the energetic exchange that we are trying to regulate with self care. So it's like if you do encounter those experiences, you have this place to come back to really find yourself in that energetic exchange so that you don't either get pulled into this toxic energy that might not be yours. And same, you don't rely on other people to find that high vibe, joyful energy as well. You can self regulate and determine where you fall on that energetic spectrum.
Mhm. My mom's always told me that your energetic field holds, certain things. It holds the energy that you're putting out, vibration and whatnot, and it determines what you're attracting into your life. So if you're sitting in a place of low vibration and you have negative energy within that energy field, you're going to be attracting situations, people, and all that type of stuff into your life based on that. So it's so important to be aware of how your energy is.
Yeah. And I think self care is how you cultivate that awareness.
Mhm.
Because a lot of us move through life without even really fully feeling, right? I don't know how I feel today, or I feel tired, but then I just take a sip of coffee and now I'm feeling energized. But it's really the stimulant of the coffee versus resting and recharging your batteries, right? So, um, energy can be a really, a really complicated thing to understand when you don't have a sense of like, how do I just connect to how I'm feeling? Because feeling is an energy, and a lot of us don't even relate to how we're feeling in any given moment. Um, so I would say that's a great place to start. And the most simplistic way to describe energy is like good energy makes you feel good, bad energy makes you feel bad, and self care is a way to regulate and hopefully move you more towards feeling good and having that energy linger around for as long as possible.
That's such great advice. Now, as you know, as a busy entrepreneur, there's lots of things on the go. You have lots of projects or launches or things like that, and life can be busy as well. So when you combine the two, it can be quite hectic. So for those that do have busy schedules, what would be your advice on the best way to approach creating a well-rounded self-care practice and being consistent with it?
Hmm. The first thing I would say is make your own rules. So, what counts and what doesn't count as far as what you deem as self care is up to you. I think we often, especially being exposed to social media, see other people's pictures and ideas of what health, wellness, self care should look like. And the reality is, self care is whatever fills your cup, whatever brings you into the alignment of positive energy and feeling good in your body and in your life. Not saying you should only feel positive, that's not about that, but again, having that ability to just sort of regulate and come back to yourself and feel grounded in your body and in your life. So, in order to do that, in order to find what works best for you, you have to make your own rules around that. So, for some, self care could be a day at the spa, and for others, it's yoga. For some, it's binging Netflix. For others, it's deep conversation. For some, it's therapy. Like, you set your own rules around what that looks like, what passes for self care and what doesn't. And in that, also deregulate your schedule around it. So I mentioned earlier when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I will just pause and meditate, and sometimes it's just for 2 minutes. But that counts. That's 2 minutes of self-care that I'm putting in my tank. So I think again, it's like we have all of these ideas of what it should look like or what it should feel like, and ultimately you need to design your own self-care practice, because when it's in your control and it's of your choice, consistency doesn't isn't an issue. You just automatically become consistent because it's a part of your life because you created it. It wasn't
Mhm.
prescribed to you.
Mm, I love that. That's so true. It's it's so much easier to be consistent with it when you create it, when it's something you truly want and need.
Of course. Yeah, like nobody's there to boss you around, and we all kind of want to push back or rebel against being told what to do. It's human nature, I think. So, if you're the boss, if you're in charge, if you make the rules, then there's no pushback. There's no consistency happens naturally because you look forward to those practices, because you reap the benefits of them, because you know what's valuable to you and you're only investing in the things that are valuable to you. If soaking in a bath for 45 minutes feels like torture and all you want to do is like hop on your iPhone and catch up on emails and things, then a bath maybe is not for you, but maybe you can stand in the shower for 5 minutes and take a few deep breaths. And if that's going to fill your energetic tank up more than soaking in a bath for 45 minutes, then that is what's most valuable for you. And you should be doing that as consistently as possible. 5 minutes each and every day is a lot better than sitting in the tub for 40 minutes once a month and dreading it.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think if you create your own practice, consistency is not an issue.
So true. Now, with Kunye, what do you offer to your community? What's available for us?
Yeah, so right now we have sort of cracked open the doors to our virtual studio, and we're doing this by facilitating live classes right now. So we have our live Zoom studio where we're hosting 3 classes a week. The schedule is going to change in October, so we're going to launch a few more classes and add a few more faces to the family, which is really exciting. So you can move with us mindfully. And we only practice movement in the mindful realm. It's yoga, Pilates, meditation, breath work, that sort of thing. Additionally, I'm launching a product line. So this is really about providing people with tools that they can utilize in creating that self-care practice that I mentioned. Self-massage is one of the things that I really love to do. So moisturizing my body and just like really connecting with myself through physical touch is a big part of my self-care practice. So creating things like the body butter and the lip balm as a way to just connect with our physical body, our outer self, is really the idea behind the shop. So there'll be some self-care products as well as some natural health and wellness products in the shop as well. And then obviously just interacting through Instagram and social media and being a part of the community and connecting and sharing your experience with me and everybody else in the community so that you can feel supported in your journey.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that. And congratulations on expanding in October. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Now, if anybody wants to learn more about you, where do you hang out the most? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. So Instagram primarily at Kunye, KUNYE.co, C-O. The website's the same. It's kunye.co. Yeah, we're mostly on Instagram. I'd love to see you in a class, a live class. The schedule's on the website as well. You can join me for a yoga or a Pilates class. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time to share your story and for helping us better understand the importance of intentional self-care practice and how it can transform our lives on a deeper level.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.